Good morning. I'd like to introduce Sasha Bailey, who's lighting our chalice this morning.
We light this chalice in memory of the courage of those who have struggled for freedom, the persistence of those who've struggled of justice, and the love of those who've built beloved communities to carry on the light of hope.
Push harder. Let's have you go this way. Oops, you ready? Keep low. There we go. Good job. Thank you, sweetheart.
Thank you so much for lighting our chalice this morning. We cannot always get freedom now, but we will continue to struggle until we get the freedom we need. We cannot always get justice now, but we will continue the struggle until we get the justice we need. We cannot always feel love right now, but we will carry the light of love in this church and out into the world until the love we need is among us always. Welcome to this congregation where freedom and justice and love are more than just words. I'm Reverend Amy Petrie Shaw. I use they, them pronouns, and we are here today on the land of the indigenous Iowa people. Welcome, come in, and let's celebrate together.
Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Des Moines. I'm Meg Notch. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. Thank you for joining us this morning. We welcome all of you to our service, the brave and the frightened, the rich and the poor, the questioning and the certain. We welcome the shattered and the whole. We welcome you. Whether it's your first time in service with us or your 100th time, we hope you'll find here questions that stretch you, people to befriend you, and liberal religious values that challenge you to join us in loving radically, serving justly, and growing spiritually and emotionally. Our gathering song this morning is number 151 in the Gray Hymnal. The title is I Wish I Knew How. We're going to do verses number 1 through 3. Stand and join us as you are able. I
everyone should be free. And you'd see and agree, everyone should be free. I wish I could give all I'm longing to give. I wish I could live like I'm longing to live. I wish I could do all the things I can do. Though I'm way overdue, I'd be starting anew. Though I'm way overdue, I'd be starting on you.
This is our time for all ages, and it's geared toward the children of all ages here in the room and those following along at home on Zoom. Thank you all for being here today. Today we're going to learn 2 new words for some of you. These are words you never would have heard before. The words are equity and liberation. Equity and liberation. Now, a lot of you have learned in school what equality is, or what equal is, or what fair is. Fair is when there's you and your sibling, and your mom has one big cookie, and she gives you each half of it. That's fair, right? Wouldn't be fair if she gave you the whole cookie and your sibling none of it. That's fairness. That's also equality. Each person gets the same. That's equal, right? But let's talk a minute, because equal isn't always fair. That sounds difficult. Equal isn't always fair. What does that mean? Well, say your sibling, maybe your brother, maybe he's 18 and he plays football and soccer and he lifts weights and he's 6'4" and he weighs 290 pounds, and maybe you're 8 and you weigh 70 pounds, and you're about this big, and your mom gets each of you half of that cookie. His body uses a lot more food for nourishment. That cookie's not going to go as far for him. It gets worse if your mom is making you both a shirt. I want you to think about that for a minute. Your mom only has so much material, and she cuts it right in half. And she makes you 2 shirts, one for you and one for your brother. Except when you put your shirt on, it comes down to the ground, and you look like you're wearing a dress. And when he puts it on, he looks like he's wearing a bikini bathing suit top. But that's still equal. You each got the same amount. Sometimes equal isn't fair because it doesn't work the same for both people or both groups. Sometimes when we're dividing things, we have to give a little bit more to one group or one person because they need more. If your mom took that same material and she made your brother a shirt that fit him, and then she made you a shirt that fit you, and you used much less material for your shirt, it's fair, but it's not equal. We call that equity. It's equitable. You each got what you needed. But there's one more piece we're going to be talking about today, and that's liberation. What if you had as much material as you needed for everybody? What if you made sure that everybody could have a shirt that fit them without having to worry about were they taking from somebody else's shirt? Now, that's a really simple way of explaining it. And we're going to talk more at the sermon about a little more complex way of understanding it. But that's what we're talking about today. Giving people what they need to do the best job they can in all the circumstances of their life, without barriers in front of them, barriers like not having enough cloth to make a shirt at all. And when you can have what you need to have a good life with no big barriers in front of you, that's called liberation. And as Unitarian Universalists, we hope that everybody lives in a state of liberation. So thank you for listening to my words today. My offering words for the morning are offered with deep gravity. A UU church was low on funds, and the tired minister got so desperate that they decided to go door to door asking people for money. The minister knocked on one door, then another door, then another. He knocked on the last door, fully expecting to have it slammed in his face, just as the others had been, and sure enough, the older woman who answered angrily demanded that he leave. Once she figured out why he was there, and she slammed the door. The door, however, bounced back open, and the woman said, "I only visited your church once, go away. Get your foot out of my door." "But ma'am," the minister started, and the woman slammed the door again in his face, and once again it bounced back. "I said, get your foot out of the door." And she slammed it shut one more time, and one more time it bounced. "But ma'am," the minister winced. "Don't talk back to me," the woman screamed. "I want you off my property." And she slammed the door a fourth time, only to see it bounce for a fourth time. "But ma'am," the minister yelled as he beat a hasty retreat down the sidewalk, "you'd be able to close the door if you just got the cat out of the way." As I would never risk a cat, the morning offering will now be given and received. There is a link in the chat. And as always, one half of our plate goes to the internal social justice programming of the church, one half to our faith and action partners, Knock and Drop and Just Voices. Thank you so much, Bruce, and thank all of you for all of the gifts and the talents you bring to your congregation. And I believe we have a spotlight from CUPS this morning. Do we have our CUPS representative? Maybe not. I know what they wanted to remind everyone was that after the day of service on May 1, that afternoon, we will be having activities for the children, some activities for the adults. You can see Susan Jellinger or any other member of CUPS to find out more about the activities that day. But when you finish your day of service events, please consider coming back. They start in the early afternoon here. There's going to be things out by the maypole and things with the children around the building. So please consider attending. The information is on the website. I ask that everyone now please settle into a comfortable position and take a few centering breaths. We're going to do 1 minute of just silent thought, meditation, or prayer. As you breathe in peace. As you breathe out love. 1 minute of silence. One of the most amazing things about being part of a church is being part of a community. And that community is there to laugh with you and cry with you, to support you in the good times and the bad. We're all here to witness one another as we go through all the things that life throws at us, hands us, and gently wraps us in. May we hold in our thoughts and prayers this week Darren and Sarah Jensen, who are in the process of moving. The people of Ukraine who still struggle during the Russian invasion. My father Robert, who had a mild heart attack this week. And let's share together now. You can type them in the chat or speak them aloud into the room. Let's share the names of anyone we know who could use some special care and attention. As we type their names into the chat or call them out loud, may the love of this community hold them all. May the light of our community shine on the broken places of the world. May the work of our hands and our hearts support and aid and comfort all those who hunger or thirst for food or water, justice or freedom. May we never look away when we're needed. May those who are grieving be comforted. May those who are tired find rest. May the broken places be healed. And may those who are filled with joy and laughter be abundant. Now together we're going to light 3 candles. One is for the joys and the sorrows we've shared here. And one is for the names we've written and spoken. And there's one last one for all of the joys and all of the sorrows which are deeply held but not spoken aloud here today.
Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul.
Good morning. We just wanted to make sure that everyone felt welcome to attend our event on Saturday, the 30th, which is next Saturday from 5 to 7:30. It's the post-pandemic party and the food fun fair event. So far, we have 41 events, 34 food items, and 13 keepsakes from the kitchen. The dinner is free with anyone who RSVP'd, and the last day to RSVP will be Monday online. We will be having also signups for after services today. Let's see. And so children, childcare is going to be available for the children from infants to pre-K. And then there'll also be a musical event where children will receive free harmonicas and lessons with musical entertainment and dancing. And that's from kids from kindergarten through 6th grade. So we hope to see all of you there. And thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Our first reading this morning is titled, In the Midst of a World, and it's by Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker. In the midst of a world marked by tragedy and beauty, there must be those who bear witness against unnecessary destruction and who, with faith, stand and lead in freedom with grace and power. There must be those who speak honestly and do not avoid seeing what must be seen of sorrow and outrage, or tenderness and wonder. There must be those whose grief troubles the waters, while their voices sing and speak refreshed worlds. There must be those whose exuberance rises with lovely energy that articulates earth's joys. There must be those who are restless for respectful and loving companionship among human beings, whose presence invites people to be themselves without fear. There must be those who gather with the congregation of remembrance and compassion, draw water from old wells, and walk the simple path of love for neighbor. And there must be communities of people who seek to do justice, love, kindness, and walk humbly with God, who call on the strength of soul force to heal, transform, and bless life.
Yeah, Kent had a sudden trip that he had to make at the last minute. He was going to provide the percussion. So if any of you feel like clapping your hands, slapping a thigh, preferably your own, that'd be fine by me. I saw her today at the reception, a glass of wine in her hand. I knew that she had come for her connection, and her feet was her footloose man. You can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. But if you try sometime, you might find you get what you need. I went down to the demonstration to get my fair share of abuse, singing, we're gonna vent our frustration, 'cause if we don't, we're gonna blow a 50 amp fuse. You can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. But if you try sometime, you just might find you get what you need. Oh yeah. Went down to the Chelsea drugstore to get your prescription filled. I was standing in line with Mr. Jimmy, and man, did he look pretty ill. We decided that we would get a soda, my favorite flavor, cherry red. I sung my song for Mr. Jimmy, and he said one word to me, and that was dead. And I said, you can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. But if you try sometime, you might find you get what you need. I saw her today at the reception. In her glass was a bleeding man. She was practiced at the art of deception. I could tell by her blood-stained hands. You can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. But if you try sometime, you just might find you get what you need. Oh yeah, you're gonna get what you need. You might just get what you need.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. Excellent. Our second reading this morning is from Harrison Bergeron by Kurt Vonnegut Jr. The year was 2081, and everybody was finally equal. They weren't only equal before God and the law. They were equal every which way. Nobody was smarter than anybody else. Nobody was better looking than anybody else. Nobody was stronger or quicker than anybody else. All this equality was due to the 211th, 212th, and 213th Amendments to the Constitution, and to the unceasing vigilance of agents of the United States Handicapper General. Some things about living still weren't quite right, though. April, for instance, still drove people crazy by not being springtime. And it was in that clammy month that the HG men took George and Hazel Bergeron's 14-year-old son, Harrison, away. It was tragic, all right, but George and Hazel couldn't think about it very hard. Hazel had a perfectly average intelligence, which meant she couldn't think about anything except in short bursts. And George, while his intelligence was way above normal, had a little mental handicap radio in his ear. He was required by law to wear it at all times. It was tuned to a government transmitter. Every 20 seconds or so, the transmitter would send out some sharp noise to keep people like George from taking unfair advantage of their brains. All of a sudden, you look so tired, said Hazel. Why don't you stretch out on the sofa so's you can rest your handicap bag on the pillows, honey bunch? She was referring to the 47 pounds of birdshot in a canvas bag, which was padlocked around George's neck. Go on and rest the bag for a little while, she said. I don't care if you're not equal to me for a while. George weighed the bag with his hands. I don't mind it, he said. I don't notice it anymore. It's just part of me. You've been so tired lately, kind of wore out, said Hazel. If there was just some way we could make a little hole in the bottom of the bag and just take out a few of them lead balls. Just a few. 2 years in prison and $2,000 fine for every ball I took out, said George. I don't call that a bargain. If you could just take a few out when you came home from work, said Hazel. I mean, you don't compete with anybody around here. You just sit around. If I tried to get away with it, said George, then other people get away with it. Pretty soon, we'd be right back to the dark ages again, with everybody competing against everybody else. You wouldn't like that, would you? I'd hate it, said Hazel. There you are, said George. The minute people start cheating on the laws, what do you think happens to society? If Hazel hadn't been able to come up with an answer to this question, George couldn't have supplied one. A siren was going off in his head. I reckon it'd fall apart, said Hazel. What would? Asked George blankly. Society, said Hazel uncertainly. Wasn't that what you just said? Who knows, said George. Our centering song is called Sanctuary. It's one that's played often at GA, which is our General Assembly for the National Unitarian Universalist Association, but it's not in our hymnal. The words are included in your order of service. We're going to have Bruce play it through once so we can hear the melody, and then we're going to sing it through 3 times. It's short, so pay close attention or you'll miss it.
Actually, Bruce and I are going to run through it together because it's putting the syllables in the right place that's kind of a little different. And then after we sing it through three times, we will all know it equally well. Okay.
Make us aware we are a sanctuary, each made holy and loved right through. With thanksgiving, we are a living sanctuary anew. Here we go. Make us aware we are a sanctuary, each made holy and loved right through. With thanksgiving, we are a living sanctuary anew. Make us aware we are sanctuary, each made holy and loved right through. With thanksgiving, we are a living sanctuary anew. One more time. Make us aware we are a sanctuary, each made holy and loved right through. With thanksgiving, we are a living sanctuary anew.
And it is our point of view that keeps us from the truth. The only way to listen to what can never be said is to quiet our need to steer the plot. When jarred by life, we might unravel the story we tell ourselves and discover the story we are in, the one that keeps telling us. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the feelings of oppression and loss that can come with doing the work of liberation. And one of my favorite stories around this topic, my absolute favorite, is from a writer named Chris Boeschool. And he wrote this in an online forum, and he's since done a couple of commentaries on it. But the basic story goes like this. Way back when, Chris was a server at a restaurant, and he was so good at it. He got better shifts, better sections, better money. 9 months later, after he started at a new restaurant, a new guy, a confident, intimidating, tough guy named something like Chuck or Brad, started, and he was equally good, so he started getting some of the good sections. For any of you who've ever served, you know how much this means. And when Chuck or Brad walked toward other men, He expected them to move out of his way. He always assumed he had the right of way. And Boeschool writes, and really, this seemed to best describe how Chuck or Brad lived his whole life, walking straight at people and expecting them to move. Until one day when Chris had just had enough, and so he kept walking also. They collided hard, and Chuck or Brad was furious, absolutely furious, and wanted to know why Chris had run into him. And Chris said, Chuck, I was just walking. Why did you assume I was going to move out of your way? And then Chuck or Brad actually struck him. Chuck or Brad ended up getting fired over that incident. Chris said later he thought of an anonymous quote, "Equality can feel like oppression, but it's not. What you're feeling is just the discomfort of losing a little of your privilege. When you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression." When I first heard this story, I tried an interesting thing. And for any of you who are female-bodied in the group, I encourage you to try it sometime. Wear padding. I had read that women will step out of the way and men will not when they are meeting what they assume to be a female person coming toward them. So I decided I would try it. Boy, there were some surprised male people. I can assure you that the least fun you can ever have is going out in public and trying this. I was shoulder checked over and over by the male persons coming toward me, male assumed persons. Not one female-bodied person or assumed female-bodied person ran into me. Everyone female did this and got right out of the way. Now, quite a few of the male people did get out of the way, assuming that I was in a hurry but not one woman ran into me. When you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. Whether that should or shouldn't be real, it's kind of a thing. Dr. Robin DiAngelo, who's a white critical race and social justice educator, she created the term white fragility. Some people hate it, some people like it, some people don't know what that is. She breaks it down like this: white people in North America live in a social environment that protects and insulates them from race-based stress. This insulated environment of racial protection builds white expectations for racial comfort, while at the same time lowering the ability to tolerate racial stress, leading to what I refer to as white fragility. White fragility, she writes, is a state in which even a minimum amount of racial stress becomes intolerable, triggering a range of defensive moves. These moves include the outward display of emotions like anger and fear and guilt, behavior such as argumentation, silence, leaving the stress-inducing situation. The behaviors in turn function to reinstate white racial equilibrium. Race-based stress is everywhere. It leaves behind pain and fragility while we're working to find justice. Some people feel like they're walking into the world of Harrison Bergeron. That reading today, a world where white people will now somehow be handicapped and pulled down in an effort to allow people of color to succeed. That's a terrifying vision, and that's not what anyone intends. But I'll tell you, I keep my hair short, very short. Because when my hair is long, it is a natural afro of curls. It's huge. And I found out when I was a kid and used to ride my bike that if I was riding my bike on the sidewalk like the other kids, and what the police officers saw driving by was my hair, I would get stopped. My friends wouldn't. And the worst part of it was when I tried to tell a teacher, nobody would believe me that I was riding with 6 other kids, and they let them go right along, but pulled me out. And when I was in a store with my friends to get bubble gum, candy, if I was wearing my natural hair, especially if I had a suntan, guess which kid developed a tail 2 feet in the door? And you learn to laugh about it until one of your white friends of Norwegian descent gets followed in a store by the staff. And when they go home and tell their parents, when they call the manager apologizes. A lot of people have a very real experience of pain and fear as we're trying to do this work of racial equality, racial equity, racial liberation. Most people want to live in a world free from uncertainty and fear. That's normal. But for that to happen for all of us, the ones of us who currently have the most, the ones who are the most centered, will have to deal with a new experience of living race, of dealing with race-based stress. We can't get what we want without getting what we need first, and we need the experience of dealing with our own racial issues, of learning to be there for one another in the pain of doing that work of not expecting people of color to help us learn. We need all of this for liberation to occur for all of us. And liberation calls for us to do more than make sure that all people can get over the obstacles in the path. It asks us to remove the obstacles. And you might notice there's a picture on the back of your order of service. It's 4 images, and it used to be 3. When this first came out, they did 3 images: reality, equality, and equity. If you call that fence an obstacle, maybe the obstacle is money or race or height. The ball game's the game of life, and the reality is that things aren't fair or equal yet. We have awesome groups like Just Voices, Amos, Knock and Drop, our church, thousands of others who are working for liberation. It's a great opportunity. If you want to do this work, talk to the folks already doing it. Because things aren't equal yet, but even if they were, equality when faced with an obstacle doesn't do much. Some people have been pushed down so far that being given the same amount of support still leaves them staring at the fence and not the game. You're only correcting for one factor. In real life, an African American family, a lot of African American families, are less than 6 generations out of slavery. As a nurse, I took care of 2 patients, both of who had parents born slaves. Mr. Roosevelt Atwater was 106 years old when I took care of him. Both his father and mother were born on a plantation in Virginia as slaves. He was the last of a series of 18 children. He was one of the first 50 Black men to go to West Point. He was taught by 2 separate instructors who had fought for the South in the Civil War and who referred to him by racial epithets the whole time he was there. That isn't 6 generations. That's somebody's parents. That's somebody. In his lifetime, we've gone from having parents who are slaves to having a Black president. No one in his family has ever owned a home because they couldn't get a loan. When he came back from the war, the GI Bill was not for him. We can't fix this overnight. If you look at the equity image, equity gives each person what they need to be able to confront an obstacle. It allows us all to compete or participate. You got three faces all staring over a fence. Let's talk about that in real terms, though, for those of you who don't think about this much. Let's talk about it in terms of kids going to college. We can give three young people the exact same scholarship. We can pay for their room, their board, their books, their housing, everything, their classes. One is a wealthier white child from the suburbs. One is a young black person. One is a low-income white or a person of indigenous origin. We can give them the exact same scholarship. The child who comes from a rich white background is more likely to have a family that owns a home and a car. They're more likely to have been taken to the library as a kid, been taken out to see art and music. They know how those things work. Maybe they've gone to PTA meetings with their parents. They know how meetings work. Maybe dad works in an office, so they've gotten to go to work with mom and dad day. That young black child from a lower economic bracket grew up with a mom who was a nurse aide and a dad who wasn't there. Now I'm generalizing broadly here. I'm painting with huge broad strokes. They came home by themselves after school. They let themselves in. They did their homework. They've never been to an art museum. They've never been to a concert. They've never been to take your mom, take your dad, take your grandma to work day, whatever. They've never seen a formal business meeting. So you put all three of them at the same college, in the same programs. That's equity, but it's not liberation. Liberation means we take away the obstacle. So what does it look like? What does it look like to be free of systemic racism? Rosemary Bray McNatt says that's what's happening in Unitarian Universalism right now. We've been presented with the gulf between what we say we believe and what we actually do, and the dissonance between the two is painful, dislocating. As people of faith, we know that, to some degree, this is part of the human condition. Our varied religious traditions are meant to help us acknowledge and close the gap between what our hearts long for and what they settle for. Right now, we don't have immediate access to what many want, a life free for everyone of the pain of dealing with racial injustice, political unrest, or social turmoil. But we have immediate access to something we need badly, a community to love and hold and travel with us and make mistakes with us as we do the work. As we engage as a church in social justice work, as we engage as individuals, we'll be able to expand and deepen our own beliefs and perspectives. We'll look for new ways to be there for one another, for new paths to learning and experience, new ways to grant one another grace. Each of us needs all of us to continue in these times, and our living faith calls us on over and over again. We're here to recognize and honor the real pain in the world and to hold on to one another in ways great and small through that pain, and to keep moving forward. We'll covenant, we'll walk together, we'll walk one another home. We'll hold one another up until the obstacles are gone and everyone can sigh in relief together. Our church is a light. You are a light. Your presence makes you a light. You may not get it perfect, but it's okay. Our light is a promise of hope and comfort for the world. And if even one of us is still moving forward, the light will never fail. So shine brightly, lean on one another, learn as much as you can. You've got this. Amen.
Carry the light of love and liberation to the world until we meet again. Our final song today is number 1021 in the Teal softcover book. For those at home, please keep your mics muted, sing along. We'll be singing 1, 2, and 3. Join us in Lean on Me.
Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain, we all have sorrow, but if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long, and I'm gonna need somebody to lean.
Back to the beginning.
Please swallow your pride if I have things you need to borrow, for no one can fill those of your needs that you won't let show. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long, and I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. If there is a load you have to bear, you one can't carry, I'm right up the road. I'll share your load if you just call me. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on.
Bottom of the page.
Just call on me, brother, when you have a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you'd understand. We all need somebody to lean on.
We can't always get what we want, but may we always get what we need. Peace, ashe, and may it be so. Amen.